Good afternoon, everyone. This week we're talking about the various components of risk management. So previously I've talked about this. The five components of risk management are risk identification, risk measurement and assessment, risk mitigation, risk reporting and monitoring, and lastly, risk governance. So we kind of already kind of know some of those things, but then we don't really know about what makes up those things. We haven't necessarily talked about that. So risk mitigation, some of those components, we would use or some tools to use to identify risk, then to incorporate that into some kind of visual tracking method. So some of those things are doing a risk audit or a risk assessment. So you know a risk assessment you do when you find out that you have something that's potentially a risk, and you would assess that risk and you would determine how likely it is going to happen, how much of an impact it's going to have, and any risk mitigation factors you could put in. So sometimes that may mean redoing your schedule, or if this happens, like if then, so if this happens then do this, if this happens then do that. So it can kind of go into a decision matrix or decision tree that you would kind of walk down and say, like, yeah, if this happens then you do this. Then you have your risk register and your risk I lost it, your risk mitigation matrix, which I think are kind of very similar, or the same thing. So in a sense, they are visual charts that you use to determine, so you have this risk that's set out, and then you have, how likely it is, what impact it will have on the project, and then you have your mitigation strategy all visually there. So everyone is on the same page. So if there's something, God forbid, that is not illustrated on that chart, then somebody has the opportunity to say, like, hey, what about this? And you can start ask those questions in a part of your communication plan when you have your meetings, and you'll present this and say, this is what we have, uh, give me your input and things of that nature. So I think those are important, and get to the point of, like, your probability and impact, right? So if something is very unlikely to happen, but its impact is huge, you may not necessarily, you can keep an eye out for it, but you may not necessarily have to plan a huge strategy for it. But if something is more likely to happen and have a huge impact, that's going to be where you want to put it. And vice versa, if you have something that's very likely to happen, but the impact is very minimal, such as maybe you had to reorder some parts or something like that, and it may have a slight delay, but not much. And then when I say slight delay, I'm talking about hours, not days, or something to that effect. Just enough for you to go to, like, Lowe's or Home Depot to get something to replace that. I don't. Again, you just basically put that as your strategy. If you run out of nails, you just say, you'll make a nail run to the nearest hardware store, and that'll be your mitigation strategy, and it won't necessarily cause the project a huge hiccup. So I think those are some of the things you can think about, and in consideration for your risk management strategy and risk management planning.